Today, we are moving on to musical notes and symbols. Everything I teach you on this channel may not follow a particular pattern, as you know, although you have met before. There are lots of professional musicians out there that may disagree with my methods, but the aim is clear, is to teach you the theory of music and help you to be able to sight read. So that is where we are going. So my method is just my own. I created this method. It might not follow the particular syllables or scheme that are out there, but this is my own scheme, this is my own arrangement, all right, so that you would also be at par with your colleagues in your church choir and even in your choral group. You'll be able to sight read or your interpret your own music. Musical notes and symbols. You know I always start with definitions. Now, there are no particular definition, or there is no particular definition for a musical note. However, just like every other language, because I treat music like a language, everybody in the world understands. Now, writing music has to be learned. You have to learn it. Since music deals with sounds and rhythms, there is need to know how long a particular sound stays for. Hence, the musical notes. Now, the first one that you always find is this particular symbol that looks like the eye of a bird. That's what I call it. Now, this particular symbol is called the breve. The breve is actually the longest single note in music, and then it has 8 beat count. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a breve, and then it is not commonly used in modern day music. Okay, you may not come across it in your entire musical career, but then if you go through music sheets in the 17th century, you'll find it. Now, the next one is what we call the semi-breve. Okay, the semi-breve is just half of the breve, and this is regarded as a whole note, and it has 4 beat count. I mentioned earlier that it is half of the breve. So the semi-breve has 4 beats, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is very, very common in this day music. And then after that, we have this one. It is called a minim. Can you guess the number of beats that it has, or can you guess what name it is called? It is called the half note. All right. And can you guess the number of beats? Yeah, you guessed right. It has 2 beats counts. Okay, and the next one is this. You can see it looks exactly like a minim that I earlier mentioned. The difference between a minim and a crochet is the shading of the down part. You can see it is shaded, but for a minim it is not shaded. I'm going to say something after I've introduced this minim, so please pay close attention. All right, so for a minim, for a crochet now, yeah, this is called the crochet, like I mentioned, and it's regarded as a quarter note. Okay, we call it quarter note, and it has only 1 beat. That's 1. Now if you look at this, does not mean that the minim appears in quadruple, like 4 notes like this. So a single one is this one. All right, this is a single one. I just wrote this to show you different ways by which it can appear. Okay, let's look at this one first. You can see this is a minim. He's sitting on his space. But don't forget that I mentioned in the previous class that we read both lines and spaces in music. Okay, so when you are writing, make sure if your note is sitting on a line, let it sit on a line. If your note is sitting in a space, let it sit in a space. So it is wrong for your line not to be on a space and not on a line. I'm going to do examples later. Okay, look at this. So this is an example. This is an example of when a minim is sitting on a line. Okay, and the second one, this particular one, is an example of when it is sitting on a space below a line. Now this is an example of when it is sitting on a space above a line. Okay, that same explanation goes for the crochets that are here. So this is a crochet on its own, but this is when a crochet is sitting on a line. This is when it's sitting in a space below a line, and this is when it's sitting in a space above a line. All right, I hope you get it. You can always pause this video and rewind it so that you don't miss any part at all. Moving on, next one we have is this. Now you can see that it's similar to the previous one, it's similar to the crochet, but the only thing, it has tail. So I call this the tail. Yeah, it has this tail called a quiver, and it is regarded as the 8th note. It has a quarter beat. Now later in the series we are going to talk about how to read these beats, how to count them. All right, I'm going to do that later. So some other occurrences of music notes is what we call the semi-quiver, the semi-demi-quiver, the semi-demi-quiver. Okay, now you are going to find this later. This semi-quiver, this particular one, is called the semi-quiver. This is the semi-demi-quiver. This is semi-demi-quiver. You are going to find all of these in advanced classes than this one, but later in the series we are going to be using this one as well. Okay, moving back, a quick reminder of what I have just mentioned in the music note. We have the brief, which has 8 beats. We have the semi-brief, which has 4. We have the medium, which has 2. We have the crochet, which has 1. We have the quiver, which has half, and then the semi-quiver I mentioned as a quarter, the semi-quiver. So do not forget, that is what the name, and the semi-quiver has a quarter beat on its own. All right, moving on, we have something we call dotted notes. That is, some notes appear and they have dots with them. Now usually a note can stand on its own, however when a dot is added, it has a different note length. Now for instance, I mentioned that a quiver, or so let's say a minim, has 2 beat counts. If you remember, a minim has 2 beat counts, but when a dot is added, it is no longer 2 beats. Now moving on, a dot will always add half of the original notes to the parent. So that is what I said, that when you add a dot to a note, it adds half of the original note to it to elongate it. Now for example, a dotted crochet has 1.5 beats. Now let's look at an illustration. Okay, this is a dotted crochet, right? Usually the crochet on its own is equals to 1 beat, right? But now a dot has been added to it, so that is 1 plus half of 1, and half of 1 is 1 is half, right? So which means a dotted crochet is going to have 1.5 beats, no longer 1. Do you understand? The dot is going to add half of the original note to it. Now let's look at another example. What about us having a dotted minim? Okay, a dotted minim. Now how many beats does a minim have? Do you remember? Yes, you're very right, it has 2 beats. Okay, a minim equals 2 beats. Okay, but now a dot has been added, so what is half of 2 now? Yes, you are very right, that is 1. So which means this note now is no longer 2, it's going to be 2 plus 1. All right, let's go through this exercise together. Now do you remember the name of this note before the dot? Exactly, it is a semi-brief. Now a semi-brief has how many beat counts? It has 4. Yes, you're very right, it has 4 beat counts. Now it has been dotted, which means half of 4 is going to be added to it. What is half of 4? Of course it is 2. So this note is no longer 4 but 4 plus 2, which this note is no longer 4 but 4 plus 2, which equals 6.